This video is brought to you by 3, bringing you 4G at no extra cost and some exclusive deals over at btech.com.
Hey guys, welcome to BTech. It's Basil here comparing the HTC One M8 with its Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 processor, its ultra pixel camera with the smaller version, the One Mini 2. Weird naming system admittedly, but the One Mini 2 has a very similar design but a tapered spec sheet. How do the two stack up against each other? Which is better and which one's right for you? Well, that's why we're here, so keep watching and you'll find out. This is a HTC One Mini 2, this is a HTC One M8, and you're watching our comparison. Now, while they might look the same, when we place them side by side, you can very clearly see this is smaller than this. 4.5 inches as opposed to 5 inches of screen to be exact. As far as the right hand side of both of them go, you've got a volume rocker and a micro SD card slot. You've got 16 gig of memory on board both, micro USB ports on the base, and a 3.5mm headphone jack on the One M8. Nano SIM slots, and up at the top are power buttons on both of these devices. You can also see a 3.5mm headphone jack on the One Mini 2, and there is an infrared blaster up at the top of the flagship One M8. Flipping the two around, and that's where the first real design difference that's striking is found, and that's the fact you've got a duo cam on the One M8 as opposed to a single 13 megapixel sensor on the One Mini 2. You've got this brushed aluminium across both though. On the One M8 you have metal at the base and all around the sides, whereas you've got a plastic banding around the entirety, meaning this is actually a two-component device, i.e. the back plate is metal and it is attached with this plastic, by contrast to this true unibody brilliance that is the M7. As far as other key design highlights go, they do both feel like flagships, it has to be said. That plastic doesn't detract from the fact that for a mid-ranger it feels very expensive. Curvaceous rounded, it's also more manageable, easier to work your thumb around the 4.5 inches of display than the 5 inches of display of the flagship M8. You can also see the displays at different resolutions, but they are both LCD screens, calibrated slightly differently though. There is a cooler there's a less saturated hue, a more accurate kind of white hue to the HTC One M8. It's a little bit bluer on the One Mini 2, not quite as color accurate, and when we jump into the applications tray, the blacks aren't quite as deep as on the One M8. But having said that, both look very good on first impression, and we'll have to hold them side by side with color charts, etc, to give you something a little bit more conclusive. Inside those screens it is Android 4.4. It's really nice to see such a comparable version of the UI across a mid-ranger and a flagship. Sense means blink feed on the left hand side, and it performs fluidly, which implies that HTC has optimized both of these phones to perfection. You can also see extreme power saving mode on both. If we tap through, we can activate it here, and we can see on the right hand side it tells us exactly what it's doing, conserving CPU usage by reducing screen brightness, turning off vibration feedback, turning off data connection when the screen's off, and allowing only essential apps to run in the background, and turning off the pedometer. So if we exit that, we can really clearly see you can squeeze a little bit of extra juice out of your battery. In fact, we're able to squeeze around a day without using the phone too much when we hit 20% battery with extreme power saving mode turned on. The applications tray is also extensively customizable. You can have your applications arranged in a grid of 3x4 or 4x5. You can also search applications, jump straight to the Google Play Store, and in addition you can also arrange your applications in multiple orders, custom, alphabetical, or by most recent. As far as multimedia highlights go, both of these phones perform brilliantly when it comes to audio. The HTC One M8, we had a quick listen earlier, is a little bit louder, but for a mid-range you won't do much better than the One Mini 2. Movies look great on it, and all in all you'll want to take advantage of the expandable memory on both in order to get your offline content on here. As far as the cameras go, both share the same camera UI, though very different sensors. 5 megapixels on the front, which is great to see, but you've got a 13 megapixel rear facing sensor on the One Mini 2 and a 4 ultra pixel sensor on the One M8. If we open up the camera UIs, we can very quickly see that they do look very similar. You've got a range of shooting modes which include complete manual shooting modes, which is always really nice to have for anyone who's a little bit more into their photography. So right now we can see we've just got all the settings that we can tweak, which include focus, shutter speed, ISO and white balance, as well as exposure. And of course there are a range of shooting modes. On the One Mini 2, this is a pre-release version, so we haven't got Zoe camera on here or Panorama 360 or dual capture. We're not exactly sure what is going to make its way across, so we'll definitely want to watch out for that. Anyone who's considering it will want to check in the future reviews, etc., what applications are available for the camera. As far as other key highlights goes, when it comes to the user interface, we didn't mention motion launch. So while the user interface is the same in terms of blink feed, in terms of the applications tray and notifications tray, for example, what we can say is a double tap of the screen on the HTC One M8 will wake the phone up. Swipe down will activate the phone into voice dialing mode. If we swipe up, we'll unlock the phone, and if we swipe to the left, we'll unlock the phone into blink feed. As you can see, swipe to the right hand side and you can unlock the phone to your main menu, whereas you get none of that on the One Mini 2. So that's a real value add, because in using the M8 we easily would say we use that every single day. At least 50% of the time we wake our phone up and power it or activate it into blink feed or camera, for example. It's also worth mentioning, when the phone is off, you can activate it into the camera by putting it into landscape and hitting a volume key. In that camera we can very quickly just do a super speedy test. Let's wipe the lens down and see exactly how the 4 ultra pixels, let's pull something a little bit more neutral into frame. So the Samsung Galaxy Gear, that 4 ultra pixels performs against the 13 megapixels on the One Mini 2. Technically speaking, despite the fact this is a lower end phone, in this kind of really good strong lighting, we'd expect the One Mini 2 to deliver the better shot. Side by side, you can see tapping through. Indeed, the One Mini 2 does look like it is potentially a little bit sharper, but if I'm not mistaken, it's also a little bit noisier. Oh, this is exciting. I think we're going to have to do a camera comparison here. Watch this space, you guys. But from our first impressions, both of these took pretty stonking pictures, and they both took relatively quickly, unsurprising in this kind of lighting. But the One Mini 2's blacks were a little bit noisier by contrast to the HTC One M8, though there was less detail on the M8 than the One Mini 2. Shocker there. Anyway, back to the rest of the specs on here. Qualcomm processors in both. You've got a Snapdragon 801 processor with 2 GB of RAM in the HTC One M8 flagship. You've got a Qualcomm Snapdragon 400 processor with 1 GB of RAM in the One Mini 2. Like we said, 16 GB. I think the one is available in 32 GB as well, but don't quote us on that. That's the One M8. Both expandable, both have 4G, though you do have Cat 4 LTE on the One M8. That's really the crux of it. Hopefully you've enjoyed and found it useful. If you have, make sure you click the like button below, and if you like our videos in general, subscribe for more of the same. Head over to btech.com where you'll find the latest in smartphones, tablets, smart gadgets, as well as some awesome deals as well.
At the top of the screen is where you can find 3 hand-picked videos for your viewing pleasure. On the left is where you can subscribe, and on the right hand side you can find some exclusive deals if you head over to btech.com.